These are the first 4 cohorts and where they originated from when they came to the program. You can see we've got a lot of people from the Pacific Northwest, but also from several other places across the US. We've got a strong contingent of students coming from Asia, especially in China, Taiwan, and India. And then we have smatterings of students who've come from a number of other locations: Indonesia, a couple from Africa, Middle East, Europe, Canada, Mexico, and somebody out there in Hawaii. So students have come from all over. That diversity can also kind of be a metaphor, as you heard, for the backgrounds that you're all bringing in. And that's one of the strengths of this kind of a program, is you probably heard people talking about things here just in this room. You said, oh, I want to talk to that person and learn this about this thing. You all bring so many different skills together that as you work together, you're going to learn a lot, not just from the classes, but also from your cohort. And in the same way, because everybody comes from different work experience, different undergrad experience, you all come together in this, you pick up this formalized skill and training, but everybody has their own individual career path that you're going out to. So that's my big caveat before saying, now let's generalize about your career paths. We've had 3 cohorts graduate and go out into the world. We'll break down in just a few simple slides where we're seeing our alum go to and what patterns we're learning about. Obviously, where you can go, big tech companies are big hirers for us, and we'll look at that a little more. There's also design studios, startups for some people as well, consultancies in various different facets. So there's a variety of different companies. In terms of what you can do, when you start looking at titles and job titles for people who come out of this program, I'd say that you don't necessarily want to focus too much on the job title itself. These are all pretty familiar names if you've done any thinking about where you're going to go. You know, UX designer, user researcher. If you're at Amazon, you're a design technologist. Basically, there's some broad titles that mean different things in different companies. And even within companies, the same title might mean a different thing. So the job titles, we cluster around those listed here, but you really could be doing different things depending on size of company and what your specific role is in there. First question that often comes up is, how rapidly do people get employed out of this program? You go through this program, it's very intense, so what kind of employment success do we see in terms of first job out of the gate? If you're looking at the information we've got here, the first 3 months after graduation, we see half of our grads have received their jobs in those first 3 months after graduation. It's not to say that everybody's finishing the program with a job in hand. Every year there's a group of our graduating students who are able to secure a job, do their interviewing, get the offer, and accept before they walk across the stage at graduation. That's not typically the bulk of the class. This is an intense program. You're really here focused on the program and the learning that you're going to get in this. And I'd say a normal pattern for a student in this program is to start really thinking more and more concretely about their career, spring quarter, and especially in summer, and then really be ready to hit the ground running as you finish off your capstone and graduate. A lot of students will take a little time right after they finish the program to put their portfolio into final polished shape, and then really get into the interview and the like. We'll work with you earlier on different career development, but the norm is to really high gear summer and as you graduate. Given that reality, that half of the class is getting employed by December is pretty impressive, I think. A sign of the demand for people with this degree. If you add to that the next 3 months, if you look at 6 months after graduation, we've got about a little over 80% of the alums find themselves employed within 6 months of graduation. That's a pretty strong rate, and again, a good sign of what you can bring to the market and what you can offer there. This is a breakdown. I doubt this will be very surprising. This is where our alum live. So if you look at our alumni out there right now, we got 61% who are here in Seattle, another 25%, 24% in the Bay Area. If you were to throw in Portland, Los Angeles, I think that Pasadena as well, the West Coast makes up more than 90% of our alumni right now. That really is the core of where our students have ended up. It's where our relationships are in a lot of cases. And again, not surprising, Bay Area and Seattle really are the hub for this kind of work. Can you go other places? Absolutely. We have students now in a few students out in New York working in places like New York Times and SoundCloud, I think. There's an alum in London, one in Netherlands, somebody working in Hawaii, Shanghai, Tokyo. So alums have gone other places, but if you're looking at our core strength, West Coast is really where we are. That's the market we know best as well. As far as companies, 3 cohorts have gone through and gone out into the work world. If you think in terms of about 30 per cohort, we've got about 100 alumni out there. They're spread amongst just about 60 different companies. So we have a pretty wide spread for fewer than 100 alum out there. There are a couple of big names that are as you would expect. Microsoft is our biggest employer so far with 13 of the alum working there right now. Amazon has 5 of our alum, Google 4, and then a few other companies have a couple people at them. We're really spread out though amongst a bunch of companies. I like to think of those alums as kind of our tentacles, our reach that are going to be advocating on your behalf and really opening more doors at most all the companies, the big name companies, and a lot of the smaller companies out in this area and the Bay Area. But there's a lot of room for building depth in more of these places, and we really are spread out amongst several different companies and not just feeding into the 2 big Microsoft, Amazon zones here. If we look at industry, again, the biggest pie slice on this chart is no doubt not surprising. About half of our alum are working in what LinkedIn, or you might call the technology field. That's pretty broad, and that's not surprising. In addition to the technology field, though, we're seeing more and more of the MHCI+D alum starting to find jobs also in other industries as other industries become more tech savvy and understand the value of pulling in a degree like this. So 7% of our students, or our alum, are in media right now. That's places like NBC, Universal, New York Times, and the like. 7% are in healthcare. That seems to be a growing area as well. One of our alums on the alum panel tomorrow is working at Premier Blue Cross. You see design firms, education, legal, CPG, that's consumer packaged goods. Those areas are all growing as well and have a small number of alum in them. I think you'll see more and more feeding of MHCI+D graduates going into these other areas beyond just the technology zone. Last slide to talk about, and one to sort of put back of your mind and think through as you plan what kind of a career, what direction you might want to go in. An important element of that discussion is what your fit is like. Are you someone for big companies, small companies, don't know, want to try them both? The bulk of our students, or the plurality of our students, are in large companies, 10,000 plus employees. But if you look as we go along, there's almost as many students working at companies that have 200 or fewer employees. So we really do span from startups on up into the large companies. And probably you'll get experience in both the small number of employees and large companies in the course of your career. Your career is likely to walk through several different employers as you move along. My advice, these are kind of big picture graphs. I think Bhavesh was the one who mentioned that she had been looking at alumni and sort of cyber stalking alumni through LinkedIn and the like. Take some time, poke through. From our web pages, you can go to the alumni section, and most of those alumni names will link you to a LinkedIn profile. Walk through some of those career paths. Take a look and see, where did someone start? What did they come into this program with? After they came out of here, where did they move next? Did they jump immediately to Microsoft? Did they do some contract work first? You can get a few more concrete examples if you just spend a little time looking at our alums. But these are some of the big breakdown things.